Hello everyone, Nika here with your daily neuro nugget. We are back at it. We have a lot to talk about, important stuff to talk about, because we understand that people like to spread rumors, or sometimes those personal opinions get misconstrued. So before we get started, grab your favorite drink. I have guacamole latte. It's Amphigyrium astringens in Latin, and it's basically tree bark, but varicose veins, spider veins, circulation, gastric ulcers, and it kills strep and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So, University of Texas has actually done lots and lots of studies. So, if you like the taste of tree bark, this might be a good tea for you. So, one of you guys messaged me today while I was still at work and said, Nika, you have to stop filming. Don't even film today. You need to talk about this topic today, because apparently there were a couple of fairly large YouTubers who were saying that Bryan's parents, specifically Bryan's dad, knew about Bryan's crime, knew that Bryan had been involved directly or indirectly in the IDAHO4, and this is why supposedly Bryan's dad went all the way to Idaho. Not to mention the whole deflection thing, right? During the Indiana stop. So I want to break this down because I think it is essential. We question where the news come from, our sources of information. Who is saying this? Is it just personal opinion? Question everything, even if it's news channels, because time and time again, in this case, we have seen so much information get so misconstrued, and large news channels outright lying. So we're going to go back because we need to refresh our memory. Is it possible that Bryan's father knew about Bryan maybe being involved in the IDAHO4? If we go back in time, we learn of an incident that took place when Bryan was much younger. Bryan allegedly stole his sister's phone. What did the father do in this case? He called the cops on his own son. Over what? Stealing a phone. Now, I need to applaud that. I do, because I think a lot of parents wouldn't go this far. And I think it is essential to go that far when somebody is breaking the law. I think it's a perfect way to hold your young children accountable, because that way they learn, oops, I broke the law. There are actions that need to be taken. And I think it ingrains a sense of honesty in very young children or young teenagers, young boys, young men, young women, because they understand, oh, I broke the law by stealing a phone, and now the cops are involved because my father called them. Meaning what? Meaning that if I commit a much larger crime, I cannot go running to mom and dad to rescue me, because mom and dad will call the police on me and hold me accountable for my actions. That is why I personally do not think that Bryan's dad had any idea of what had taken place. People say, well, why did he drive all the way over there? Maybe he wants to spend time with his son. Allegedly, the trip had been planned months prior. So could it be just YouTubers and news channels wanting to misinterpret or move facts, change stories? It makes it more interesting, right? If we say that his father knew. Things like that are more likely to get more clicks, more views, make more money. Now, if we go back in time, we also can remember the incident where Bryan is driving and his father is riding with him in the passenger seat. They get pulled over in Indiana, and we see the officer asking Bryan a question, and the father kind of butts in, cuts the officer off before Bryan can even answer. And people have said, see, that's Bryan's dad. He knew what his horrible son had done. So he's deflecting the conversation. And I think that Bryan's dad probably didn't even know about the IDAHO4 yet. Why? Because the first thing that comes out of his mouth is this other shooting that happened near the area. Now, if you're a parent and your children are living out of state and they're working in a university where or near something horrible just happened, like this shooting that this father mentioned, it likely came up because it was what was on his mind in that very moment. Could Bryan's father maybe have been concerned for the safety of his son? I think it's highly likely. I think a lot of parents would bring that up because they want their children to be safe. It doesn't matter if their children are 28-year-old adults, right? Because parents still see their children as children. You still worry about your children. So the body language. I'm not a body language analyst, and neither are most of you on YouTube or in the comment section. So I do have 2 degrees in psychology, but even then, it does not really give me the proper training to analyze body language. And we know that people who are on the spectrum or who may be neurodivergent have body language that does not match neurotypical people, aka normal people. Meaning what? Meaning that if we thought we knew how to read body language, even if it was a body language analyst, they better be trained in reading neurodivergent body language. Why? Because we tend to have different body language. And people say when they watch this video of Bryan getting pulled over with his father sitting next to him, that they get a little bit shifty. I think that Bryan is shifty all of the time, like physically shifting in his seat. Sometimes he can be very serious, resting bitch face. We are not equipped to break down his body language or his father's. I have said this before. I personally think that Bryan Kohberger is on the spectrum. I'm not his therapist, but something about the stillness in his face, the lack of facial expression. And when I have worked with people with autism, there are some similarities. Now, he may not be. He just may have a resting face. A lot of us have resting faces. So Bryan also has very wide eyes. And in the video, it's very noticeable. We also see Bryan doing this when he's trying to talk to the officer. You see him kind of lean forward towards the steering wheel. And I think it is because he was trying to have visual contact with the officer because his father is kind of blocking his view. So can we really blame him for shifting his body while the officer is trying to ask him a question? I don't think so. I think it's normal to want to have eye contact when an officer is asking you questions and you've already been pulled over twice. Also, he had been pulled over twice. Could he have been concerned? Maybe, why am I getting pulled over again? Is this something to do with anything? Or you let me know down in the comments below. Because I think it's too early to tell if Bryan is guilty or not, if he was involved or not. We see the state time and time again trying so hard to control the narrative. How? They keep trying to block the IGG. Why? If you are not hiding anything, Idaho, let us see everything. Stop sealing IGG. And they want to have the trial in Idaho. Again, this is a way to control the narrative, right? When you have so many ties in such a small town, what do you think is going to happen? Even if they were to move the trial outside of Moscow, I am still unsure if that would make any difference. At times when I'm reading back the legal documents and the sealing of this and the sealing of that by the state, I sometimes forget that this trial is actually taking place in the United States of America, where we like to often brag about our freedoms, our rights, our liberties. And then you see this mess in Idaho. And it makes you wonder. And it should make you wonder. Because the right to a fair trial is being squashed from the get-go. Idaho seals everything, controls the narrative. This has nothing to do with Kohberger being guilty or not. This is deeper. This goes further, much further. This is about our collective rights, not just Bryan's. I've had people tell me that I'm a Kohberger lover, that I should find him to go on a date with him. And I'm like, you know what? I would love to buy that man a coffee, whether he is guilty or not. Why? Because the fact that he has put up with so much BS from the state alone, with constant sealing of documents he needs, amongst other things, right? This case is in shambles. It is in shambles. And to remind you, this goes deeper. I know it's very easy to say he deserves it, he did it, but we don't know. And if somebody doesn't even have their chance to have a fair trial, how will we ever know when we are allowing the state to do as they want? And we know, those of us who have read history books, we know what happens when the state takes over. It's all downhill from there. So don't let people control the way you view the world. Don't let them make this case something small. A lot of people say, you're so invested. You're so, why are so many people drawn to this case? For me, yes, it is about having justice for these beautiful 4 young people who lost their lives. Actual justice. What does that look like? For the victims, for the families. To me, that looks like actually having the right person in prison. Not an innocent person, potentially, who just happens to be somebody easy to blame. So it's about our rights, it's about fairness. Why? Because we know that if we don't stand up for things that are off, things that are or may be happening illegally, when it comes knocking at your door, and hopefully it never does, you're prepared and we have our rights. Can you imagine having nothing to do with a crime, but a crime gets pinned on you, maybe because you had information to expose a corrupt PD, and you're a good person, so you do what's right, and then they pin it on you, or try to pin it on you, and then the state covers everything. They try to protect this information that may free you, aka Bethany. Where is this exculpatory evidence? And then the state seals everything, and then you don't even have access to what information they have on your case. I know I'm not the only one that thinks this is fishy. This is why this case has garnered so much attention, because we all know it, we feel it. Our instincts are telling us that there is something off here. 120 plus agents involved in this case. 400 plus people that Ann Taylor said she still needs to interview. So, let me know down in the comments below. Do you think Bryan's dad knew? Do you think he even knew about the crime? Do you think Bryan's dad is the type of father to cover for his son? If Bryan allegedly unalived 4 people, do you think the father would cover for him? Is that why he drove out there? Or was it to spend time with his son, who he hadn't seen in a long time? Let me know down in the comments. I cannot wait to read your messages. So that's my video for the day. I wish I could show you my socks right now. They're donut socks, but maybe another day. Have a good night, guys. I don't want to go to work. All right, here we go.